My name is Billy, and at 34, I've built a tech empire from nothing but determination and code. Growing up, my older sister Amanda raised me after our parents died when I was 15. She became the manager at our local bank, where I still kept a small personal account, a decision she'd come to regret. What she didn't know was that behind my casual appearance and modest requests was the founder of a multi-billion-dollar company. The day she humiliated me for withdrawing $170 changed everything. Before I tell you how I taught my sister the lesson of her life, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, where life was comfortable but never extravagant. My father worked as an engineering professor at a local college, while my mother taught elementary school. We were a tight-knit family movie nights on Fridays, camping trips during summer breaks, and science projects spread across the kitchen table. Those were simple times filled with laughter and encouragement. My parents always told me I could be anything I wanted to be. I believed them. Everything changed on that rainy Tuesday in October. I was 15 when police officers knocked on our door. My parents had been driving home from their anniversary dinner when a drunk driver crossed the center line. They died on impact. In an instant, my world collapsed. The next few days passed in a blur of funeral arrangements and concerned neighbors bringing casseroles we couldn't bring ourselves to eat. Amanda was 25 at the time, already working her way up at Northeast Regional Bank. She had her own apartment, a steady boyfriend, and a 5-year career plan. Taking custody of a teenage brother wasn't part of it. Nevertheless, she became my legal guardian, moving me into her small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. From day one, our relationship was strained. Where our parents had been warm and supportive, Amanda was cold and rigid. I didn't ask for this responsibility. She would remind me whenever I needed something for school or wanted to join an extracurricular activity. You need to learn the value of money and hard work. Even before our parents died, Amanda and I were different. She was always the practical one, good at math, organized, and focused on stability. I was the dreamer, constantly tinkering with computers and coding small games that made my father beam with pride. My mother used to mediate between us, helping translate my ideas to Amanda in ways she might appreciate. Without that buffer, our differences became chasms. My interest in computers only grew after the tragedy. I found solace in coding, building virtual worlds where I had control when my real life felt so chaotic. I'd spend hours at the community center computers since Amanda refused to waste money on a computer for our apartment. "You're just playing games," she'd scoff when I tried explaining I was learning JavaScript and Python. "That's not going to pay the bills, Billy. You need a real skill, not this internet nonsense." When I turned 16, Amanda insisted I get a job. I started stocking shelves at a local grocery store after school and on weekends. Every dollar I earned went into the checking account. Amanda helped me open at her bank, the same account that would later become the focal point of our most significant confrontation. "Banking is a real career," she would tell me while counting my meager deposits. "Look around you, Billy. These people have stability benefits, retirement plans. Not like those tech startups that go bust in 6 months." Despite working nearly 30 hours a week through my junior and senior years of high school, I managed to maintain good grades. I was accepted to Boston University with a partial scholarship. But it wasn't enough. Amanda refused to help financially. "I'm not spending my savings on a computer science degree," she declared. "If you want to waste 4 years, that's on you." I took out loans and worked 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. During my sophomore year, I developed my first app, a simple productivity tool that made a modest $5,000 in its first year. When I excitedly shared the news with Amanda, she dismissed it. $5,000. That's what I make in a month. And you spent how long on this? A year. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Billy. No stability. After college, I launched my first startup with 2 classmates. We worked out of a dingy basement apartment living on ramen and caffeine. The company focused on database management solutions, not sexy but necessary. After 18 months of 80-hour weeks, we failed to secure second-round funding and had to shut down. Amanda was almost gleeful when I told her, "Now maybe you'll listen to me. I can get you an interview as a teller at the bank. It's entry-level, but it's something." I declined and started another venture, then another. Each failure hurt, but I learned critical lessons. Amanda kept detailed mental records of every misstep, bringing them up at holiday dinners and family gatherings. "Remember that app thing that went nowhere? Or that database company that folded? Or the security software no one wanted?" What Amanda didn't understand was that the security software no one wanted had actually contained the seed of something revolutionary. I had developed an encryption algorithm that was faster and more secure than anything on the market. After my third startup failed, I retooled the concept, focusing exclusively on data security for financial institutions. This time things were different. We secured seed funding then, a Series A round that valued the company at $6 million. I hired experienced executives who knew how to scale. By year 3, we were providing security solutions to credit unions and small banks across New England. Then came the breakthrough. Our system detected and stopped a major hack attempt at a mid-sized bank in real time, something their existing security protocols had missed. Word spread through the financial community, and suddenly we were fielding calls from major institutions. By year 5, my company's Secure Flow Systems was valued at over $2 billion. 6 months later, that valuation had doubled. I owned 45% of the company. I became wealthy beyond anything I had imagined, but I kept my lifestyle relatively modest. I bought a comfortable but not ostentatious house outside Boston, drove a high-end but not flashy car, and continued wearing the same style of jeans and button-downs I'd always preferred. Most importantly, I never told Amanda about my success. Our relationship had settled into a pattern of occasional phone calls and obligatory holiday gatherings where she would question my career choices and remind me that a position at her bank was still an option when this tech phase ends. I maintained the small checking account at Amanda's bank branch that I'd opened as a teenager, keeping just a few $1,000s in it for sentimental reasons. It connected me to my past, to the 15-year-old who'd lost everything and had to start over. I used it occasionally for small personal purchases, keeping my business and investment accounts at larger financial institutions. Amanda had risen through the ranks to become the manager of the same branch where she'd started as a teller. She took great pride in her position, her stability, and what she perceived as her superior life choices. She had no idea that her little brother was now one of the wealthiest people in Massachusetts. I often considered telling her, but always decided against it. Part of me wanted her to recognize my value without the trappings of financial success. Another part, the hurt 15-year-old inside me, wanted her to figure it out on her own and feel the weight of her years of dismissal. I never expected that moment would come because of a simple $170 withdrawal. The situation began innocently enough. My longtime friend Jacob was turning 35, and I wanted to get him a special edition vinyl box set from his favorite band. The record store near Amanda's bank was one of the few places that carried it, and they only accepted cash for purchases over $100. Something about credit card processing fees cutting into their margins. I had a busy day of meetings scheduled, but managed to carve out a lunch break to stop by the bank and then the record store. I was dressed casually that day. Jeans, a faded Boston University t-shirt under an open flannel shirt, and sneakers. My usual everyday attire, nothing that screamed tech billionaire. It was just past noon when I walked into Northeast Regional Bank. The branch was busy with the lunch rush, a mix of business people and retirees filling most of the available seating in the waiting area. I didn't immediately see Amanda, which was fine by me. Our interactions were always awkward at best, painful at worst. I took my place in line, scrolling through emails on my phone while waiting. 2 customers ahead of me, an elderly gentleman was making what seemed like a complicated transaction. The young teller, his nameplate read Ryan, was patiently walking him through the process. When it was finally my turn, I approached Ryan's window with a polite smile. "Good afternoon," he greeted professionally. "How can I help you today?" "Hi, I'd like to make a withdrawal from my checking account," I said, sliding my ID and bank card across the counter. Ryan typed my information into his computer. "And how much would you like to withdraw today, sir?" $170, please." He nodded and began processing the transaction. That's when I heard her voice. "Billy, is that you?" I turned to see Amanda emerging from her office designer glasses perched on her nose hair, pulled back in a severe bun that added to her authoritative appearance. She wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than most of her employees made in a week. Amanda always believed in looking the part of success. "Oh, hey, Amanda," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just making a quick withdrawal." She walked over to Ryan's station, her heels clicking decisively against the marble floor. "I'll handle this, Ryan," she said, effectively dismissing him. The young teller looked confused but stepped aside. "What brings you in today?" she asked loudly. Too loudly, drawing the attention of nearby customers and employees. "Don't tell me you're having money problems again." "No, just need some cash," I replied, quietly aware of the eyes now on us. $170 for a birthday gift. Amanda laughed, a sharp theatrical sound designed to carry. $170. That's all. The way you came in here looking so serious, I thought you might be making a major withdrawal. I felt my cheeks burning. "It's just for a record I'm buying Jacob for his birthday." Still wasting money on outdated technology. Some things never change. She turned to Ryan, who was standing awkwardly nearby. My little brother, always the tech enthusiast, but never quite making it work financially. Ironic, isn't it? Ryan gave an uncomfortable smile, clearly wishing to be anywhere else. Amanda turned back to me. "So, $170 from your account that has." She made a show of checking the computer screen. $2,314.22. Cutting it a bit close this month, aren't we? The people in line behind me shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to disappear through the floor. "The account is fine, Amanda. I just need the cash." She sighed dramatically. "We typically encourage our clients to use debit cards for these transactions, but I suppose we can accommodate you." She looked around the bank, raising her voice even more. "We don't usually serve beggars here, but I'll make an exception for my little brother." The bank went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Amanda counted out the bills with exaggerated precision. 100, 150, 160, $170. "Please count it to verify." "It's fine," I mumbled, shoving the money into my wallet. "Are you sure I wouldn't want you coming back claiming we shorted you? Every dollar counts when you're on a budget." I said nothing, just nodded and turned to leave. "Have you thought any more about that teller position?" she called after me. "We could really use someone with your people skills." The snickering from a couple of customers felt like physical blows. I pushed through the glass doors and into the parking lot, my face burning with humiliation. As I sat in my car, a modest Audi, that I loved for its reliability rather than status, I felt a familiar feeling washing over me. It was the same sensation I'd experienced when Amanda had refused to come to my college graduation because she had a meeting, or when she'd told extended family members at Thanksgiving that my business ventures were little projects to keep him occupied until he finds a real job. The humiliation burned, but underneath it was something else, a resolve that had fueled me through every startup failure, through every late-night coding session, through every investor rejection. I was not the failure Amanda thought I was. I had built something significant, something that mattered, and perhaps it was time she knew it. I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes, replaying Amanda's words and the snickers from the other customers. The humiliation felt raw, like an open wound. I'd experienced my sister's dismissive attitude my entire life, but something about this public display felt different, more calculated, more cruel. As I was about to start the car, my phone rang. The screen showed Catherine, CFO, and I took a deep breath before answering. "Billy here," I said, trying to keep the emotion out of my voice. "Billy, great news." Catherine's energetic voice came through. "Apex Data just accepted our final offer. We're officially acquiring them for $3.9 billion. Despite my mood, I smiled. We'd been negotiating this acquisition for months. Apex Data had patent technology that would perfectly complement our security systems. "That's fantastic," I replied. "When do we need to wire the funds?" "They want to close by end of business Friday, so we need to transfer the money tomorrow at the latest. I've got Bank of America setting up the transfer protocols, but we can actually initiate it from any bank if that's easier for you. You just need to be there in person with all your identification to authorize a transfer of that size." I fell silent as an idea began forming in my mind. "Billy, you still there?" "Yeah." "Sorry," I said. "Just thinking about something." "Catherine, what if we did the transfer from Northeast Regional instead? The branch on Commonwealth Avenue. The smaller bank. I mean, we can, but why? They'll have to jump through more hoops for a transaction that size." "Just personal reasons," I said. "Can you send me the documentation I'll need? And maybe reach out to their corporate office to give them a heads up about the transaction amount." "Sure, but I'll explain later. Just trust me on this one." After hanging up with Catherine, I sat motionless, contemplating what I was considering. Was I really going to use a multi-billion-dollar business transaction to teach my sister a lesson? Part of me felt it was petty beneath me. The other part remembered every dismissive comment, every public humiliation, every time she'd made me feel small. I called our company's legal counsel, Matthew. "Matthew, quick question. Is there any legal issue with me initiating a $3.9 billion wire transfer from my personal account at a small local bank, assuming I have the funds available in that account first?" "Not legally, no," he replied after a moment of surprised silence. "As long as it's your money, and you're authorized on both accounts, you can transfer between them. But a bank that size will definitely need advance notice for their liquidity requirements. Their daily transfer limit is probably nowhere near that amount. And if their corporate headquarters is notified in advance, then you should be fine. They'll need to make special arrangements, but it's doable. Mind if I ask what this is about?" "Just exploring options," I said vaguely. "Thanks, Matthew." My next call was to the corporate headquarters of Northeast Regional Bank. After being transferred 4 times, I finally reached their chief operations officer, explaining that I needed to make a significant transfer the following day. I didn't mention the amount yet, nor my connection to the branch manager. I simply asked for their protocol for large transactions, providing my credentials as CEO of SecureFlow Systems. The COO was immediately deferential. "Mr. Reynolds, we'd be honored to handle any transaction for SecureFlow. If you could email me the approximate amount and destination details, I'll make sure everything is prepared for you. I'll send that over shortly. Please keep this confidential for now, just standard business privacy." "Of course, sir. We understand completely." After sending the email with the transaction details, I received an almost immediate phone call back from the bank's president himself, assuring me they would handle everything with the utmost care and discretion. They would alert the branch only minutes before my arrival to maintain confidentiality as requested. I drove to the record store, purchased Jacob's gift, and then headed back to my office for afternoon meetings. The entire time, I contemplated whether I was taking things too far. Was this about justice or revenge? Was I being petty or standing up for myself? By evening, I had made my decision. This wasn't just about today's humiliation. It was about years of being made to feel inadequate, years of Amanda believing she had the right to treat me as a lesser person because of her perceptions of my financial status. Perhaps seeing the reality of my situation would finally allow us to have a relationship based on mutual respect, rather than her perpetual condescension. I went home and laid out my best suit for the next day, a hand-tailored Tom Ford, that I reserved for important investor meetings. I gathered my identification documents, printed out the necessary transfer authorizations that Catherine had sent over, and prepared a cashier's check to deposit into my personal account before initiating the transfer, a necessary step to ensure the funds were officially in that account. As I set my alarm for the morning, I felt a strange mix of anxiety and resolution. Tomorrow would change everything between Amanda and me. For better or worse, she would finally see me for who I truly was. The next day, I arrived at the bank at 3:15 in the afternoon, strategically timing my visit for when the bank would be less crowded but still a full hour before closing. This time I drove my other car, a subtle but unmistakably high-end Mercedes, and parked it prominently near the front entrance. I was dressed in my Tom Ford suit, Ferragamo shoes, polished to a mirror shine with a Patek Philippe watch that cost more than most houses visible on my wrist. Not my usual style, but today was about making a statement. The same security guard who had barely noticed me yesterday straightened up as I entered, giving me a respectful nod. Inside the bank was quieter than during the lunch rush, just a few customers completing their transactions, a couple of people waiting in the regular line, and several employees behind their stations. Amanda was at a desk in the open area, reviewing documents with a younger employee. She glanced up as the door opened, and I saw her momentary failure to recognize me in my business attire. When she did, her expression shifted to one of annoyance. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to return so soon after yesterday's encounter. Rather than getting in the regular line, I walked directly toward the section labeled Business Banking, where a young woman named Melissa, according to her nameplate, sat at a desk. Amanda immediately stood and intercepted me before I reached Melissa's desk. "Billy, the regular teller line is over there," she said, firmly gesturing to where I'd stood yesterday. Her voice carried the practiced patience of someone speaking to a person who didn't understand basic protocols. "Actually, I need to speak with you about a business matter," I replied calmly. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" Amanda frowned, suspicious. "What kind of business matter?" "I'd prefer to discuss it in private," I repeated, maintaining direct eye contact. She sighed dramatically. "Fine. I have a few minutes." She turned to Melissa. "I'll be in my office, if anyone needs me." I followed Amanda to her office at the back of the branch, a glass-walled space that offered the illusion of privacy while allowing her to monitor the entire floor. The walls were decorated with her banking certifications, employee achievement awards, and a large framed photograph of her shaking hands with the bank's regional director. "Have a seat," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk while she settled into her high-backed executive chair. "What's with the suit?" "Job interview, finally." I ignored the jab. "I need to make a withdrawal." Amanda's expression immediately shifted to exasperation. "You came back dressed like that and interrupted my day for another withdrawal. How much is it this time?" $200. 300. $3.9 billion, I said quietly. Amanda stared at me for a moment, then let out a short laugh. "Very funny. Now, what do you really want? Money problems? Need a loan?" I placed my driver's license, passport, and company ID on her desk. $3.9 billion, I repeated. "From my personal account after I make a deposit. I'll need to wire it to Bank of America for an acquisition my company is completing." "Your company," Amanda said flatly, still thinking I was joking. "And what company is that exactly?" "Secure Flow Systems. I'm the founder and CEO." Amanda's smile faltered slightly. "Securaflow, the security software company." "Yes. That's a major corporation. I've read about them in the journal." Her eyes narrowed. "Stop wasting my time, Billy. This isn't funny." I pulled out my phone, opened the company profile on Forbes, and turned it to face her. There was my photograph next to the headline, "Secureflow CEO William Reynolds revolutionizes banking security." Amanda's face drained of color. She grabbed the phone, zooming in on the picture, then looking back at me. This is some kind of joke." Or you've created some elaborate fake website. Her voice had lost its certainty. Call your corporate headquarters, I suggested calmly. They're expecting this transaction. I contacted them yesterday. As if on cue, her desk phone rang. Amanda stared at it for a moment before answering. Amanda Reynolds speaking. I couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but I watched as Amanda's expression morphed from confusion to shock. Yes, he's here with me now. Yes, I understand the importance. No, I had no idea. Of course, we'll provide full cooperation. When she hung up, she looked at me as though seeing me for the first time. That was the regional director. He said, you're making a $3.9 billion transaction today. That SecureFlow is acquiring Apex data. That you're the CEO and founder, yes. Her computer chimed with an email notification. She clicked it open, her eyes scanning rapidly. They've sent verification protocols and transferred special authorization to our systems for this transaction. She looked up at me. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? I asked simply. Before she could answer, there was a knock at her office door. A man in a tailored suit I didn't recognize peered in. Miss Reynolds, sorry to interrupt, but we're receiving multiple alerts from corporate about a special transaction. Yes, Frank Amanda, said her voice slightly unsteady. This is my brother, William Reynolds. He's the CEO of SecureFlow Systems and will be conducting a significant transaction with us today. Frank's eyes widened as he looked at me. Mr. Reynolds, it's an honor, sir. Your company's encryption protocol saved our entire network last year during the Eastern Seaboard attacks. Glad we could help, I replied. I'll need to verify your identification, Amanda said suddenly, all business as she tried to regain her composure. Of course. She examined my driver's license and passport carefully, then logged the information into her system. The computer immediately flagged the transaction amount, triggering another phone call from corporate. As Amanda took the call, I could see bank employees gathering outside, whispering among themselves. Word was spreading quickly. Frank remained in the doorway, watching with fascination as Amanda's carefully maintained professional demeanor cracked under the pressure of the situation. Yes, I understand the verification process, she was saying into the phone. Yes, I've confirmed his identity. Yes, we'll follow all protocols. The bank's normal operations were grinding to a halt as the unprecedented situation unfolded. Through the glass walls, I could see employees at their terminals, supervisors huddled in discussion, and customers sensing something unusual was happening. And at the center of it all was Amanda, her world shifting beneath her feet as she realized that her failure of a brother was about to conduct the largest transaction in the bank's history. Things escalated quickly after Amanda hung up the phone. Within minutes, her office became the center of an unprecedented flurry of activity. A woman in her 50s with an executive demeanor burst through the door without knocking, slightly out of breath as if she'd been rushing. Miss Reynolds, I'm Patricia Harding, Northeast Regional's head of special transactions. Corporate sent me over immediately. She turned to me with a practiced smile. Mr. Reynolds, it's an honor to meet you. I apologize for the interruption, but a transaction of this magnitude triggers certain protocols. Behind her, I could see two men in dark suits speaking with the security guard who had doubled his alertness. They looked like federal banking regulators, though they hadn't introduced themselves yet. The branch will need to suspend regular operations temporarily, Patricia continued. We're implementing emergency transaction protocols. Amanda looked stunned. Suspend operations. But we have customers. Other branches have been notified and are ready to accept redirected customers, Patricia cut in smoothly. This transaction requires our full attention and security resources. Amanda's desk phone rang again, her direct line. She answered it with a shaky Amanda Reynolds speaking. I could hear a loud voice on the other end. Amanda's expression shifted from shock to something approaching fear. Yes, Regional Manager Phillips, he's here with me now. Yes, sir. I understand the importance. No, I hadn't been briefed about Mr. Reynolds's visit. Her eyes flicked to me nervously. Yes, he is my brother. The admission seemed to cause physical pain. Outside the glass walls of her office, employees were now openly staring. Some were on phones, others huddled in small groups, all of them sneaking glances at me with new interest. The systems are flagging authorization requirements, Frank reported from a computer terminal he'd commandeered in the corner of Amanda's office. We need multiple override codes for a transaction of this size. Patricia nodded, pulling out a secure phone. I'm contacting Treasury Services now. We'll need federal clearance as well. Amanda hung up her phone, looking pale. The regional manager is on his way. He's bringing the executive vice president of operations with him. I remained calm throughout, occasionally checking my own phone as Catherine sent me updates about the receiving account at Bank of America being prepared for the incoming transfer. We'll need to move to the conference room, Patricia announced. More secure, more space for the team that's assembling. As we walked through the main floor of the bank, I could feel every eye on us. The few remaining customers were being politely but firmly directed to other branches by apologetic staff. The teller stations were empty, their computers locked in secure mode. One of the dark-suited men approached us. Mr. Reynolds, Agent Calloway, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Nothing to be concerned about, sir. Standard procedure for transactions over $1 billion. We just need to verify a few details. Of course, I replied amicably. Happy to provide whatever you need. The conference room was quickly filling with bank officials, both local and those arriving from regional headquarters. Computer specialists were setting up secure terminals. Someone had ordered coffee service, which arrived with a nervous young employee who couldn't stop staring at me. Amanda was being steadily pushed to the periphery of the activity, physically and figuratively. The banking executives who arrived addressed themselves directly to me, treating her as little more than an observer, despite her position as branch manager. Mr. Reynolds, we're establishing a direct line to the Federal Reserve to ensure liquidity parameters are adjusted for this transfer, explained a serious-looking man who introduced himself as the bank's chief risk officer. A movement of funds this size affects our reserve requirements. Completely understandable, I nodded. My team is coordinating with Bank of America on the receiving end. Throughout this process, I maintained a calm professional demeanor, the same one I used when addressing my board or speaking at industry conferences. I was polite, patient, and thoroughly knowledgeable about banking protocols for large transactions. This was not my first multi-billion-dollar deal after all. The contrast between this treatment and Amanda's condescension just 24 hours earlier couldn't have been more stark. Every person who entered the room treated me with deference and respect. My credentials were never questioned. My expertise was assumed. One of the regional executives who had just arrived leaned toward Amanda, whispering not quite quietly enough. You never mentioned your brother was William Reynolds of SecureFlow. Do you have any idea what this transaction means for our quarterly numbers? Amanda mumbled something inaudible in response, her face a mixture of embarrassment and shock. The bank systems continued to trigger alerts as the transaction was set up. Each billion-dollar threshold required additional security measures, verified signatures, and authorization codes. What would have been a 5-minute transaction for a few $100s had turned into a complex operation involving dozens of banking professionals. The Federal Banking Authority has been automatically notified, announced one of the technicians. They're monitoring the transaction in real time. Standard procedure, Patricia reassured me. Nothing to be concerned about. I'm familiar with the protocols, I replied, with a small smile. My company designed some of them. This comment caused another ripple of impressed murmurs through the room. Amanda, still standing awkwardly near the wall, looked like she might faint. Miss Reynolds. Patricia called out suddenly. Could you join us at the main table? We'll need the branch manager's verification codes as well. Amanda approached the table hesitantly, taking the seat farthest from me. Her hand shook slightly as she entered her authorization code into the tablet presented to her. One of the executives who had arrived with Regional Manager Phillips leaned over to me. "Mr. Reynolds, while we complete this process, I'd like to discuss our private banking services with you. For clients of your stature, we offer exclusive benefits that your sister may not have mentioned to you." "I'm sure she hasn't," I replied evenly, glancing toward Amanda, who was staring fixedly at the tablet in front of her. "We're surprised you've been using a standard personal account all this time," he continued. "We have wealth management services specifically designed for ultra-high net worth individuals like yourself." "Do you offer those services to beggars?" I asked quietly, ensuring only he and Amanda could hear. The executive looked confused, but Amanda's head snapped up her face, draining of what little color remained. The regional manager cleared his throat. "Miss Reynolds, could I speak with you for a moment?" He gestured toward the door. As Amanda followed him out, I could see through the glass walls that the conversation was not pleasant. The regional manager's expression was stern, his gestures animated. Amanda's shoulders slumped further with each passing moment. Inside the conference room, the transaction preparations continued. The bank had literally frozen all other operations to accommodate this single massive transfer. What had been a bustling financial institution just hours earlier was now entirely focused on serving one client, a client whom the branch manager had publicly humiliated just the day before. After nearly 45 minutes of preparation, verification, and authorization, the transaction was finally ready to proceed. The conference room had transformed into something resembling a war room, with multiple computers displaying various aspects of the transfer banking officials on secure calls, with federal authorities and security personnel stationed at the doors. Regional Manager Phillips returned without Amanda. He approached me with an outstretched hand. "Mr. Reynolds, everything is prepared for your authorization. But first let me formally introduce myself. James Phillips, Northeast Regional Bank's Regional Director for New England." "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Phillips," I replied, shaking his hand. "The Executive Vice President of Northeast Regional would like to speak with you briefly." "Before we proceed," he said, gesturing to an older gentleman in an expensive suit who had been observing from the corner of the room. The man stepped forward, hand extended. "William Reynolds. I'm Harold Montgomery, Executive VP of Northeast Regional. This is quite the honor. Your company's work in financial security has been revolutionary. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Before we proceed with this historic transaction for our bank, I'd like to personally invite you to join our private client group. We provide specialized services for individuals of significant wealth, with dedicated relationship managers and proprietary investment opportunities." "I appreciate the offer," I said diplomatically. "I must say," Montgomery continued, lowering his voice, "we were surprised to learn that someone of your position has been maintaining a standard checking account at our branch, especially given your relationship with the branch manager." I smiled thinly. "Yes, about that relationship. Where is my sister now?" Montgomery and Phillips exchanged glances. "Miss Reynolds is taking a moment to compose herself," Phillips said carefully. "This situation has been rather unexpected. I'd like to speak with her before completing the transaction," I said firmly. "Of course," Montgomery replied quickly. "James, would you please ask Miss Reynolds to join us?" Phillips nodded and left the room. Through the glass walls I could see him speaking to Amanda, who was sitting alone at a desk in the now empty main floor of the bank. She nodded, stood, and smoothed her suit jacket before following him back to the conference room. Amanda entered with her professional mask back in place, though I could see it was costing her considerable effort to maintain. "Mr. Reynolds has requested a moment with you before we complete the transaction," Montgomery explained to her. "Of course," she replied stiffly. "Would you like to use my office for privacy, Billy?" "I mean, Mr. Reynolds." "That won't be necessary," I said. "I believe everyone here should understand our relationship clearly." I turned to Montgomery. Amanda is my older sister. She became my guardian when our parents died in a car accident when I was 15. Montgomery nodded. Yes, she explained that to us. What she may not have explained, I continued, is that yesterday, when I came to withdraw $170 for a friend's birthday gift, she publicly humiliated me in this very bank. She implied I was financially unstable, called me a beggar, and suggested I take an entry-level position at the bank. The room fell silent. Every eye turned to Amanda, whose professional mask was crumbling rapidly. I didn't realize," she began. Clearly, I cut in. "But what concerns me more is not that you were unaware of my financial status, but that you felt it appropriate to treat anyone that way regardless of their bank balance." Montgomery looked deeply uncomfortable. "Mr. Reynolds, please accept our sincere apologies for any unprofessional treatment you received. This is not representative of Northeast Regional's standards of customer service." "I wasn't treated that way because your bank has poor standards," I clarified. "I was treated that way because Amanda believed I was a failure, and she's carried that belief for 15 years. Amanda finally spoke up. "Billy, this isn't fair. You never told me about your company. You let me believe." "I let you believe nothing," I interrupted. "You decided what to believe about me. You decided I was a failure because I chose a different path than yours. You never asked about my success. You only cataloged my struggles." The banking executives were doing their best to appear invisible during this family confrontation, but their discomfort was palpable. "Perhaps we should give you two a moment alone," Phillips suggested. "That won't be necessary," I said. "I believe we're ready to proceed with the transaction." "Wait," Amanda said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Billy, can we please talk about this privately?" I regarded her for a long moment. "After the transaction?" Montgomery nodded to Patricia, who stepped forward with a tablet. "Mr. Reynolds, if you could please verify these details and provide your final authorization." I reviewed the information carefully, then entered my authorization code and applied my digital signature. "The funds should now be available in my personal account. Please proceed with the wire transfer to the specified Bank of America account." Patricia nodded and began the final process. Around the room, banking officials monitored their screens as the historic transaction was executed. "Transfer initiated," Patricia announced after a moment. "Confirmation codes are being generated." "Excellent," I said, rising from my seat. "If that's all you need from me, I'll be on my way." "Actually," Montgomery interjected smoothly, "we've prepared a private dining room at the Capitol Grill to express our gratitude for your business. We'd be honored if you would join us for an early dinner to discuss how Northeast Regional can better serve your financial needs going forward." I glanced at Amanda, who was staring at the floor. "Thank you for the invitation, but I have other commitments this evening. Perhaps another time." Of course," Montgomery said quickly. "Miss Harding will escort you to your vehicle and provide you with her direct contact information for any future needs." As Patricia gathered her things to accompany me, Montgomery turned to Amanda. "Miss Reynolds, a word in private, please." I walked past Amanda without acknowledging her, following Patricia toward the exit. Just before reaching the door, I paused and turned back. "Mr. Montgomery," I called. "You should know that my sister is actually quite good at her job. She's detail-oriented, thorough, and committed to banking. Her personal feelings toward me shouldn't overshadow her professional capabilities." Montgomery looked surprised but nodded. "Thank you for that insight, Mr. Reynolds." I continued toward the exit, aware that I had likely just saved Amanda's job, or at least given her a fighting chance to keep it. As I reached the door, I heard her voice behind me. "Billy, wait." I stopped, but didn't turn around. "Please," she added, her voice breaking slightly. I turned to face her, saying nothing. "Can we talk, please? Just for a minute." I nodded toward the front entrance. "Walk me to my car." Once outside, away from the prying eyes and ears of the bank personnel, Amanda finally broke down. "I don't understand," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" All these years you let me believe you were struggling. Would you have believed me if I had told you? I asked. Or would you have assumed I was exaggerating or lying? She had no answer for that. Yesterday wasn't an isolated incident, Amanda, I continued. You've been treating me as a failure since I was 15 years old. You decided my path wasn't valid because it didn't look like yours. You never supported my dreams or believed in my potential. That's not fair, she protested weakly. I took you in. I raised you. You provided shelter and basic necessities. I corrected her, and I'm grateful for that. But you never provided what I needed most: belief, support, respect. Amanda wiped at her eyes. I was trying to protect you from disappointment. The tech world is so unstable. I wanted you to have security. No, I said firmly. You wanted me to validate your choices by making the same ones. My success threatened your worldview, so you needed me to fail. She flinched at my words but didn't deny them. I have to go, I said, unlocking my car. I have an acquisition to complete. Are you transferring all your accounts to Bank of America? She asked in a small voice. I haven't decided yet, I replied honestly. But if I keep any relationship with Northeast Regional, it will be despite our personal history, not because of it. I got into my car and started the engine. Amanda stood there looking lost, in a way I'd never seen before. For the first time in our adult relationship, the power dynamic had completely reversed. Billy, she said, as I prepared to drive away. I'm sorry. For yesterday. For everything. I looked at her for a long moment. I know, I finally said. But knowing isn't the same as understanding. Think about why you're sorry. Is it because of how you treated me, or because of who you now know me to be? With that, I drove away, leaving Amanda standing in the parking lot of the bank where she'd built her career and defined her worth, a definition that had just been completely upended. The acquisition of Apex Data proceeded smoothly, and within a month we had fully integrated their technology into our security systems. The business press praised the move as visionary and strategically brilliant, and our company valuation increased by another 30%. I didn't hear from Amanda for 3 weeks after the bank incident. Then one Sunday morning, I received a text message. Can we talk coffee somewhere neutral, Amanda? I considered ignoring it. Part of me, the hurt 15-year-old, who had been dismissed and belittled for years, wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine. But the man I'd worked so hard to become knew that perpetuating the cycle wouldn't heal either of us. I suggested a small coffee shop halfway between our homes for the following Saturday. When I arrived, Amanda was already there, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a stark contrast to her usual formal business attire. She looked smaller, somehow less certain. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down across from her. You're welcome, I replied, waiting for her to continue. She took a deep breath. First, I want you to know that I wasn't fired. I was put on administrative leave for a week and required to take customer service retraining. But Mr. Phillips decided that your comment about my professional capabilities carried weight. I nodded but said nothing. Second, she continued, her voice less steady. Now I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I treated you. Not just that day at the bank, but for years. And you were right, I wasn't sorry for how I treated you. I was sorry about who you turned out to be. And that's unforgivable. I watched her carefully. This level of self-awareness was new for Amanda. I've started seeing a therapist, she admitted. I needed to understand why I felt so threatened by your choices, why I needed you to fail to validate my own path. She paused, gathering herself. It turns out I'm not as secure in my choices as I thought. I followed the safe route because I was afraid to take risks, and I resented you for having the courage I lacked. That couldn't have been easy to acknowledge, I said quietly. It wasn't she agreed. But neither was building a billion-dollar company from nothing. She attempted a small smile. I've been reading about you. Your journey. The failures before the success. You never gave up even when I was telling you to quit. It wasn't about proving you wrong, I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Maybe not entirely, but I didn't help, she admitted. I should have supported you. I should have believed in you. We talked for nearly 3 hours that day. Really talked perhaps for the first time since our parents died. About our grief, our different ways of coping, the pressure she felt taking on a teenage brother, the abandonment I felt when she treated me as a burden. It wasn't an instant reconciliation. How could it be, after 15 years of misunderstanding and hurt? But it was a beginning. Over the next several months, we established a new kind of relationship. Amanda made efforts to understand my world, even asking thoughtful questions about my company and technology in general. I invited her to a company event where she could see what I'd built, meet my team, understand this part of my life that had been invisible to her. For my part, I worked with a therapist of my own to process the lingering resentment I felt. I came to understand that Amanda's criticism had partly fueled my drive to succeed, not in a healthy way, but in a "I'll show you" determination that had consumed me for years. I needed to find motivation that came from within, not from a desire to prove her wrong. 6 months after the bank incident, I established the Reynolds Innovation Scholarship, a foundation that provides funding and mentorship to young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. The foundation focuses particularly on those whose ideas have been dismissed or underestimated by traditional institutions. Amanda, to her credit, asked to volunteer with the foundation, reviewing applications and providing financial literacy training to scholarship recipients. Her banking expertise proved valuable, and it gave her a way to support the kinds of dreamers she once dismissed. As for Northeast Regional Bank, I maintained a business relationship with them, though I moved my primary accounts elsewhere. The incident became something of a legend in banking circles. The day a branch froze to handle a $3.9 billion transaction from the branch manager's beggar brother. Amanda eventually left her position as branch manager, not because she was forced out, but because she decided to pursue a different path. She now works for a community development financial institution that provides loans and banking services to underserved communities. She tells me she finds the work more meaningful than chasing quarterly targets and customer acquisition metrics. Our relationship will never be what it might have been if our parents had lived, if she hadn't been forced into a guardian role she wasn't prepared for, if I hadn't carried the chip on my shoulder for so many years. But it's honest now, real, based on who we actually are, rather than who we expect each other to be. The most important lesson I learned through all of this wasn't about money, or success, or even family. It was about identity and worth. For too long, I had allowed Amanda's perception of me to shape how I saw myself. My success was partly an attempt to prove her wrong, to prove I had value. But true self-worth can't come from external validation or bank balances. I realized that even if Secure Flow had failed, even if I was actually making that $170 withdrawal from my last few $100s, I would still have deserved to be treated with dignity. We all do, regardless of our financial status or professional achievements. In the end, the greatest freedom wasn't from Amanda's judgment, but from my need for her approval. The day I walked into that bank in my casual clothes to make a small withdrawal before I revealed my wealth before the bank froze, I already had everything that truly mattered. I just couldn't see it yet. So what about you? Have you ever been judged by appearances, or had someone underestimate your potential? How did you respond? Did you try to prove them wrong? Or did you find a healthier path forward? Leave your stories in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't showing others what they missed. It's finding peace, regardless of what they think. Until next time, this is Billy Reynolds, signing off.